I just stopped and I said, so is my son gonna make it through this surgery? Because this is a big surgery. They're opening up the heart. And he said, do you believe in God? I said, absolutely. And he said, say a prayer for me tonight.
Dylan was my first and only child I've given birth to.
And her pregnancy was normal, it was great. You know, we were excited to have a baby. Dylan was born on 11/6 at 6:11 in the morning.
So the pediatrician came in, checked his APGAR score, and he took him out of the room. He said, I just need to do some more tests.
All he knew was that there was an obstruction of blood flow. The blood wasn't flowing correctly through the heart.
We have no idea what's wrong, but something's wrong.
He said, we're gonna have to fly him to Kansas City, and before we do that, if you need to get him baptized, then you should get him baptized.
So Dylan was diagnosed with pulmonary atresia. They just used to call that blue babies. And so Dylan's pulmonary valve, he doesn't have one. It looked like there was a piece of paper just laying on the top of his pulmonary valve. There was no blood going through it at all.
And you know, when you're listening to that, all these words, and you don't know what it is, you know, our question is our son gonna live or die? That's really all I want to know.
I kept asking the doctor, I said, what kind of life is he gonna live? He said, we don't know. But what kind of life is he gonna live? We don't know.
What they decided to do on how to fix it was they were going to use a wire and actually poke a wire through the tissue that was grown shut over his pulmonary valve, which would open that up. Dylan was the 6th child in the United States to ever have this done. We asked, well, how are the other 5 doing? And they told us that, you know, 3 of them are still alive.
His heart reacted well to that, but it wasn't enough.
The big issue was he wasn't getting enough oxygen in his blood, even though that valve was open now.
So then they were kind of back to the drawing board. What are we gonna do?
And so they decided, you know, we need to put a shunt in.
It was open chest surgery.
Kara and I prayed that night that he would be with the surgeons to do the work on Dylan. And then, you know, he never fails us. He came through, and Dylan came through the surgery just fine.
I was a little bit older when I was pregnant with Audrey. Did go through a normal pregnancy and normal birth, and it was about 3 months before we knew that she had some kind of issues and something that was going on.
She was not eating very well, and we finally decided that, you know what, we need to go see the doctor because this is not normal.
And he said, well, maybe she has a kink in her upper intestines. So then he sent us for a barium swallowing test. Part of that is taking x-ray of the upper part of her abdomen, and they captured the bottom part of her heart. And so the x-ray tech said, oh, it looks a little bit big.
And Dr. Tong said, you guys are going straight to St. Louis. And then the airplane came and got Yvette and Audrey.
Her defect is called Alcapa, where it's anomalous left coronary artery to the pulmonary artery.
Layperson's version of Alcapa is that there's not enough blood pumping from your heart to your lungs.
When we arrived at St. Louis Children's, her chest measured 13.3 centimeters across and her heart took up 10.9 of it. So she was in heart failure. And mind you, we went from a Tuesday, oh, let's go check and see what's going on, to a Friday having open heart surgery.
So the initial surgery was to put her coronary back where it needed to be.
Even though that they did correct the connections in her heart was so damaged.
And about 20 hours after her surgery, she went into cardiac arrest.
Truly, this is a kiddo that was down and out for 20 minutes. I mean, she was getting chest compressions for 20 minutes. I just did not think that we would get her back. When you have patients like that are not functioning, their heart function is not good, then they hook you up to an ECMO machine.
ECMO is life support, for lack of a better term.
So that becomes her lungs and it becomes her heart.
They said, we probably need to go ahead and put her on the transplant list and just start, just because we don't know what's going to happen.
We were there at St. Louis Children's Hospital for 2 months, almost exactly.
She developed blood clots, and then she developed further complications, and just about the time that we thought, you know, we're going to lose her.
The surgeon comes busting in the doors and he says that there's a heart available for her, but we have to decide within an hour whether we want it or not.
And he basically said, if you don't go for this heart transplant, I would be surprised if she leaves this hospital alive.
It was just such a beautiful match.
And for the first time in 10 weeks, she had color. and she had pink lips, and she had rosy cheeks.
Audrey is a miracle, true miracle.
Dylan is 14 and he plays sports. He plays basketball and baseball. He even runs track.
This has not been a crutch to him. This has just made him stronger.
Matt and I, when we were in the hospital, we developed lists, and we want to see her ride a bike. We want to push her in a swing. We want to, do those sort of things, and we just want to have her be normal.
If you saw her at school or out on the playground, you would not know that she's persevered through all of this. She's 7 years old.
She's on a little basketball team now, and she's just tenacious, and her head is just is screwed on right, and she just is a great kid.
The American Heart Association, they're an amazing, wonderful organization.
Little Hats, Big Hearts is a wonderful program that provides hats for newborns and to help raise awareness for heart disease. And it's just kind of a reminder that we're here to help you. We're here as a resource.
Because of the research of the American Heart Association lobbying, we now have Chloe's Law. And every baby has to have their oxygen checked before they leave the hospital. And so that right there is going to catch some more heart defects.
The interventions that people can get if they have a congenital heart defect or if they have some other type of heart ailment that happens are absolutely wonderful, and it's because of the research that the American Heart Association is doing.
Dylan does have another heart surgery. At some point in time, it will give him a pulmonary valve. Our cardiologist, he's a research guy, and he said the longer you can wait, the further along research will be, and the better the procedure will be.
Audrey was transplanted in 2010, but there is at least a 50% chance that she would have to be retransplanted.
And now they're talking about artificial hearts and artificial valves and stem cells that can do so much for people. It is exciting.
We know every day science gets better. We know every day we have better tools, and American Heart Association helps us with that.
Kids like me, without them, they have not lived through our heart problems.
You never know who is going to be the next person that has a child with a heart defect. Who's going to be the next person that has a heart attack?
When you're giving to the American Heart Association, you don't know who you're helping.
Our physicians, our medical staff, and our researchers, they're God's healing hands right here on earth. But if we don't have the funds to have our research, the doctors don't have the tools they need to save these kids' lives.
The reality is they give children a chance.